The red hoodie glowed under the sodium light, a stain against the night, smiling at me like it knew I'd never make it home. July 1996, I was 24, fresh out of the army, my duffel bag rattling in the trunk of my beat-up Geo Metro. Stationed at Fort Hood, Texas, I'd counted the hours until I could drive back to Wisconsin, my real life waiting like a promise. That night I was wired, too restless to sleep, pacing my barracks until midnight. The desk sergeant, a grizzled bastard, made me wait until 2:45 a.m. for my sign-off, his rounds a final jab at my patience. By 3:30, I was on the road, the interstate stretching into the dark, my boombox blaring Springsteen to keep me awake. Feel that rush, the open road calling but your eyes begging to close? Adrenaline carried me through the first hour, Dallas's lights a blur in my rear view. But past Denton, exhaustion hit like a brick, my lids drooping, the white lines dancing. I needed a break, just a quick nap until dawn. A picnic stop sign glowed ahead. Not a rest area with bathrooms, just a patch of gravel with tables and a trash can, the kind of place you forget by morning. I pulled in, the Geo's tires crunching, and stepped out, the Texas heat clinging, despite the hour. 3 cars and 2 semis idled nearby, their drivers invisible. I tossed a soda can, my eyes grazing a faded flyer on the trash bin. Missing persons, faces blurred by time. I didn't linger, too tired to care. See that flyer? Now its edges curling, whispering warnings you'll wish you'd read. Let me take you back. At 18, I hitchhiked once, thumb out on a Nebraska back road. A trucker picked me up, his grin too wide, his questions too personal. I jumped out at a gas station, heart pounding, swearing I'd never trust the road again. Back in the Geo, I cracked the windows, the air thick with dust and heat, and turned up the boombox, its static-laced tunes a thin shield. I reclined the seat, my body sinking, and was out in minutes. A jolt woke me 5, maybe 10 minutes later, the car trembling like a hand had brushed it. I squinted into the dark, my pulse spiking but saw nothing, just the picnic tables, silhouettes. Tiredness pulled me back, my mind blaming nerves. Then it came again. A tug at the passenger door, metal scraping, deliberate. I bolted upright, my breath sharp, scanning the windows. Empty. The night was still, the boombox droning low. I cranked the volume, my hands shaking, and lay back, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Ever feel the dark watching, waiting for you to blink? Minutes later, the car rocked hard, the door handle rattling. I sat up, and there he was. A man, pressed against the passenger window, his red hoodie glowing under the sodium light, hood up, face shadowed. His smile, wide and wrong, gleamed, but his eyes were hidden, black pits in the dark. I was 5'6", fresh from combat training, but fear gripped me, raw and primal. "You want something?" I yelled, my voice cracking, army bravado kicking. He didn't move, just stared, that smile frozen. Young and stupid, I flung the door open, stepping out, fists clenched. "Come back, I'll end you." He turned, slow, and walked to the picnic tables, his green tennis shoes scuffing the gravel. Something glinting at his side, a blade, maybe a machete. I scrambled back into the Geo, heart hammering, and peeled out, the engine whining. 10 miles later, exhaustion returned, my body betraying me. Another picnic stop sign beckoned, and I cursed North Texas for its lack of rest areas. I pulled in, backing into a spot for a quick escape, the lot near empty save 1 car. Feel that trap tightening, the road itself conspiring against you. I locked the doors, cracked the windows, and restarted the boombox, its music a frail anchor. Sleep took me fast, but a thud on the driver's window snapped me awake, my body jolting. Nothing. I stepped out, dumb, reckless, my military ego roaring, but the lot was deserted, the air heavy with silence. Back in the car, I locked up, too wired to sleep, eyes closed but mind racing. A prickle ran down my neck like a gaze boring through me. I opened my eyes, and he was there. Red hoodie, green shoes, smiling, 6'2" or taller, his frame skeletal under the sweatshirt. The glint flashed again, a machete's edge catching the light. See him now, his smile a promise, his blade a vow. I lunged for the door, fumbling the lock, but the Geo's cheap mechanism jammed. He stepped back, still smiling. 30 feet away now, unhurried. I grabbed my baseball bat from the back seat, yelling, "Come on!" Words I didn't mean. Fear, drowning my bravado. He advanced, slow, deliberate, when headlights slashed the dark, a yellow van screeching to a stop. Two more figures, hooded, leaped out, their shapes blurring in my panic. My keys were in the ignition and I floored it, the Geo lurching forward, tires spitting gravel. The van's men were close, the red-hooded man closer, but I didn't stall. The road swallowing me as I hit I-35. I didn't stop until Oklahoma, 20 miles north, my hands trembling at a gas station pump. In the restroom, a flyer caught my eye. Identical to the first, its text now searing. Missing persons. A suspect described as 6 tall, red hoodie, blue jeans, green shoes. My blood ran cold, the machete's glint flashing in my mind. Daylight broke and I drove to Wisconsin. Wide awake, the flyers' faces burned into me. I never called the number, never spoke of it. Shame and fear sealing my lips. See those faces now, their eyes accusing, their fates tied to your silence? I live in North Texas now, passing those picnic stops daily, their gravel lots unchanged. The red hoodie haunts me, his smile a ghost in my rear view. The machetes shine a warning I can't shake. I keep the bat in my car, its grip worn. A relic of a night I escaped but never left behind. The road stretches on, but I don't stop, not there, not ever. The fire alarm screamed through my apartment, a piercing wail that tore me from sleep and into a nightmare I couldn't escape. It was 8 a.m., a Monday morning gone wrong, the air thick with panic as neighbors fled our burning building. I grabbed my keys, wallet, laptop, whatever I could carry, and stumbled into the chaos, my heart pounding with the fear of losing everything. The flames had devoured the 3rd floor, licking at my own, and by the time I reached my car, I knew home was gone. But the real horror wasn't the fire. It was what waited in the apartment above my new refuge, watching, hungering, hidden behind the blare of a TV show called Power Slap. The fire left my life in ashes. My apartment was uninhabitable, its walls charred, its memories reduced to soot. The landlord promised repairs, but it would take weeks, maybe months. I scoured ads for a new place, my savings dwindling, my desperation growing. Hotels were my only option, their sterile rooms a cold comfort until I spotted a flyer at a diner. Tenant needed for 1-bedroom apartment, urgent, cheap rent. The address was unfamiliar, a rundown part of town where streetlights flickered and stray dogs roamed. I called the number, my voice trembling with hope, and the owner, a gruff man named Carl, told me to come by the next morning. I didn't care about the details. I needed a roof, a bed, a chance to rebuild. The building was a relic, its brick facade crumbling, its hallways dim and smelling of mildew. Carl showed me the apartment, a cramped 1-bedroom with a sagging couch, a tiny kitchen and a bathroom where the tiles peeled like old skin. It wasn't much, but it was mine, signed on a lease tailored to my situation. As I moved in, I saw a man climbing the stairs, his frame massive, his footsteps heavy. He was in his 40s, I guessed, with a bald head and eyes that didn't meet mine. Carl mentioned only 2 other tenants, one on the 1st floor, another above me. I assumed the man was my upstairs neighbor, a loner like me, and thought nothing more of it. That first night I lay in bed staring at the cracked ceiling, unaware that the walls were hiding a monster. Sleep was elusive, my mind replaying the fire, the loss, the uncertainty. But as I drifted off, a sound jolted me awake, the muffled roar of a television coming from above. It was Power Slap, a reality show I'd seen ads for, its announcer's voice booming through the thin ceiling. I groaned, assuming my neighbor was a night owl, a fan who'd binge an episode or two before bed. But the noise didn't stop. Hour after hour, the same theme music looped, the same cheers, the same commentary, relentless and maddening. I tossed and turned, my pillow no match for the sound, my exhaustion deepening with each cycle. By morning I was a wreck, my eyes bloodshot, my focus shattered. The next day was a blur, my job at the office a slog of typos and missed deadlines. I told myself the neighbor would tire of the show, that tonight would be quiet. But as I collapsed into bed, the TV roared to life again, louder, more insistent. Power Slap again, its rhythm a cruel mockery of my need for rest. I pounded on the ceiling, shouting for silence, but the noise didn't falter. My frustration grew, a knot of anger tightening in my chest. I called Carl, but he dismissed me, saying he didn't meddle in tenant disputes. "Sort it out yourself," he grunted, and hung up. I didn't know then that the sound was a mask, hiding something far worse than a loud neighbor. The third night was the same, then the fourth, each worse than the last. My sleep was stolen, my sanity fraying. I saw the man again, lumbering up the stairs, his bulk filling the hallway. I called out, asking if he was the one upstairs, but he didn't answer, just vanished into the shadows. I decided to confront him, to demand he stop. The next morning before work, I climbed the creaking stairs to his door, my knuckles rapping hard. No answer. I knocked again, then again, waiting half an hour, but the apartment was silent, as if no one lived there. I left, defeated, but vowed to try again that night. After work, I marched upstairs, my anger overriding my fear. I banged on the door, shouting, "Open up! I know you're in there!" Still nothing. The TV blared below, Power Slap's theme music seeping through the floor, a taunt that drove me to the edge. I paced the hall, my fists clenched, my mind racing. Maybe he was deaf or drunk or mocking me. I noticed an open kitchen window at the end of the corridor, its frame rusted, its glass smeared with grime. I leaned out, hoping to call him from there, to break through the noise. What I saw through that window stopped my heart, a vision so vile it burned into my soul. He sat on a sagging couch, his massive frame hunched, the TV's glow casting flickering shadows across his face. In his hand was a human leg, raw and bloody, its flesh torn where his teeth had ripped it free. He chewed slowly, deliberately, his eyes fixed on the screen, Power Slap's cheers a sick accompaniment to his meal. Beside him hung a body, limbless, its torso dripping blood onto the floor, pooling in a dark, viscous stain. A knife, long and jagged, lay on the table, its blade crusted with red. My stomach heaved, bile rising as I gripped the windowsill, my legs trembling. This wasn't a man, this was a beast, a cannibal feasting in plain sight. I don't know how I didn't scream. My body moved on instinct, pulling me back from the window, my breath shallow and ragged. I stumbled downstairs, my hand shaking as I fumbled with my keys, locking my door as if it could keep that horror out. I curled up in bed, the TV's noise now a sinister chant, a reminder of what lurked above. I didn't sleep, couldn't think, my mind trapped in the image of that leg, that body, that knife. By morning, I packed what little I had, my movements, frantic, my fear a living thing. I called Carl from a hotel, my voice hollow, telling him I was leaving, hinting at what I'd seen. He grunted, uninterested, and I wondered if he knew, if he'd always known. I checked into a motel, its neon sign buzzing like a warning. I didn't call the police, didn't dare. What could I say? That I'd seen a monster through a window? That power slap was the soundtrack to murder? I was a coward, I know. But fear had me in its grip, and I let it win. Every night I dream of that apartment, of blood dripping on the floor, of his eyes turning to meet mine through the glass. I don't know if he's still there, if others have seen what I saw, if the police ever came. But I know this. Some evils hide in plain sight, behind the noise of a TV, and I'll never feel safe again. The cabin perched on a ridge above the Maumee River, its wooden walls creaking under the weight of a summer night in 1972. A yellow security light buzzed in the yard, casting a sickly glow that turned the Ohio wilderness into a dreamlike haze. Inside, I lay in bed, a boy of 9, lulled by the river's distant murmur. But that night, the darkness brought something else. 2 figures at our door, their pleas echoing with a terror I'd never forget. I was 9, maybe 10, when I spent that summer with my grandparents in their cabin, a rough-hewn retreat in northeast Ohio. It was their escape from the world, a place where the nearest neighbors were miles away, weekenders who vanished by Monday. The closest town was a 10-mile drive, hospitals even farther. My grandfather wasn't like other grandpas. A World War II veteran, he'd come back from the Pacific changed, his mind scarred by battles he never spoke of. After the war, he joined the Air Force, staying away for years, leaving family stories of a man broken and healing in solitude. He returned, but not whole. His eyes held a restless edge, his voice sharp with warnings of doom. Middle East wars, gas shortages, Watergate, the Kennedys' deaths. He trusted no one, certain the banks would collapse, the Russians would invade, or riots would burn the world. His fears shifted weekly, a litany of threats only he could see. He prepared for the end, stocking our cabin like a bunker. Shelves of canned food, water jugs, generators, fuel cans, gold bars hidden somewhere secret. Firearms lay buried. In the yard, ammo stashed in locked boxes. To him, they were coming for our stuff, and we had to be ready. I was just a kid, wide-eyed and half-believing, caught between his paranoia and the innocence of youth. The cabin sat across from a 2-lane highway, its gentle curves offering glimpses of the Maumee River's silver flow. But half a mile down, the road twisted into a sharp bend, ending at a narrow bridge over a creek. That curve was cursed. Every year cars skidded off, leaving wreckage and sometimes bodies. We'd hear the distant screech of tires, the crunch of metal, and I'd wander down the next morning, curious, wondering if the drivers were okay. Feel the night's stillness, the river's whisper lulling you, but something stirs beyond the light. The cabin's safety is a lie and danger knocks. One humid night I woke to a pounding at the door, a frantic rhythm that jolted me from sleep. My room was steps from the entrance, my grandfather's down the hall. I stumbled out of bed, heart racing as he appeared, his face hard, a 1911 pistol gleaming in his hand. He thrust a shotgun into my arms, its weight cold and heavy, whispering, "Stay sharp." I clutched it, my small hands trembling as he peered through the window's curtain. The yellow security light bathed the yard in a ghostly glow, making everything look warped, unreal. I peeked out, my breath catching. 2 figures stood on the porch's lower steps, a man and a woman, their faces half hidden in shadow. They'd knocked and stepped back as if sensing the danger inside. Grandfather cracked the door, pistol raised, his voice a growl. The woman's words spilled out, a desperate flood of grief and fear. "There's been an accident," she gasped, her voice cracking. "Down at the curve, people are hurt bad. Please call an ambulance. Come help them." Her hair was matted, dark streaks glinting. Blood, I realized, my stomach twisting. She wore ripped jeans, a fringed suede jacket like the hippie's grandfather despised. The man beside her was silent, his biker vest patched and worn, his feet bare on the rough wood. Bare feet? I frowned, unease creeping up my spine. He didn't speak, didn't move, just stared at the porch, as if my grandfather's gun meant nothing. Grandfather's hatred for hippies was legend, and he saw them as proof of society's decay. "Calm down," he barked. But she only grew louder, pleading, her hands wringing. They argued, her voice rising to a wail, his cutting through with threats. "Get off my property or I'll shoot you both," he roared, stepping onto the porch. I followed, the shotgun heavy, my bare feet cold against the planks. The couple retreated, the woman still begging, the man trailing her like a shadow. Under the yellow light I saw it again, his feet pale and bare, untouched by the gravel path. I shivered, unable to name the wrongness. We watched them vanish toward the highway, their forms swallowed by the night. I hadn't heard a crash, no screech of tires. Something felt off, but I couldn't grasp it. Close your eyes. See their faces in the yellow light, her blood-streaked hair, his bare feet. The river hums, but their pleas echo, unnatural. Back inside, Grandfather sat me down, his voice low, his eyes glinting with certainty. "They're lying," he said. "Druggies probably looking to rob us, maybe worse. You heard about the Manson murders? That's what they're like." The Manson killings, 4 years fresh, had gripped him, a grim fascination he'd shared in late-night rants. I nodded, but doubt gnawed at me. "What about the blood in her hair?" I asked, my voice small. "Fake," he snapped. "A trick to get inside." I suggested calling the state police just to be sure, but he scoffed. Cops were part of the system he distrusted, as likely to betray us as help. We went back to bed, but sleep eluded me. Her voice, his silence, those bare feet, they haunted me, a puzzle I couldn't solve. Morning came, the sun burning away the night's chill. I stayed close to the cabin, too spooked to check the curve as I usually did. But by mid-morning, sirens wailed and police cars lined the highway's edge, their lights flashing red and blue. Curiosity won out. I grabbed my shoes, and Grandmother, sensing my unease, walked with me. An ambulance was pulling away as we reached the scene, its siren fading. The guardrail was crumpled, shards of glass and metal littering the road. A tree bore a deep gouge. Bark stripped raw, and a mangled motorcycle lay in the ditch, its frame twisted like a broken toy. Searchers combed the wooded creek below, their voices low. We overheard fragments. A man dead, his girlfriend found half a mile away, clinging to life. A single motorcycle had lost control, slamming into the tree. A woman, sobbing to a trooper, clutched her hands asking about boots. "My son's boots," she cried, her voice breaking. "He just bought them. The crash threw them off. He never wore a helmet. I begged him." The trooper murmured comfort, saying her son hadn't suffered, killed instantly on impact. My blood turned to ice. Boots, bare feet, blood in her hair. The pieces clicked, a horrifying truth dawning. The couple at our door, they were the victims, already dead. Their pleas a ghostly echo. Feel your heart stop as the truth sinks in. The yellow light now a veil between worlds. They stood there dead, begging for help we didn't give. We walked home in silence, my mind reeling. I didn't speak to the searchers, didn't tell them about the night before. I couldn't. The words wouldn't form. My thoughts tangled in fear and disbelief. For days I was numb, replaying their faces, her blood, his silence. Who had she wanted us to help? Were they trapped, wandering, seeking aid their bodies no longer needed? I overheard my grandparents once, late at night, crafting a story to ease their guilt. The man didn't die right away. Grandmother said softly. They were on drugs, stumbled here, then collapsed later. Grandfather grunted agreement, but his voice lacked conviction. We never spoke of it again, and our summers at the cabin grew rare, the ridge too heavy with memories. That night changed me. I see the yellow light in my dreams, hear her voice, see his bare feet. The Maumee River still flows, but its murmur carries, their cries, a reminder that the line between life and death is thinner than I ever knew. I wonder even now if they're still out there, knocking on doors that won't open, lost in a night that never ends. The jungle exhaled a warning, its breath hot and sharp, but we marched in, cameras ready, blind to the claws waiting in the dark. My name is Angela Parker, a final-year journalism student, burning with ambition to make my mark. Our class was tasked with filming a documentary in a nearby jungle, split into 5 teams, each chasing a unique story for top marks. My team, Jonathan, Carlos, Grace, Sammy, Martha, Kevin, and 2 teachers, Mr. Andrew and Mr. Joan, drew the southern sector, a tangled maze of vines and secrets. Our topic, the dwindling wildlife. Animals vanishing as human axes carved their homes to dust. 7 days to film, 2 to edit, a tight window, but we were hungry for glory. Feel that pulse of ambition driving you into a place that doesn't want you? We set out a day early, the 9-hour drive a grueling slog through dusty roads, our van rattling with gear, cameras, tents, food, water. Jonathan, our leader, cracked jokes to keep spirits high, while Sammy clung to Kevin, her boyfriend, their whispers a soft hum. Carlos, ever the skeptic, fiddled with his lens, and Grace sketched storyboards, her pen scratching. Martha, quiet but sharp, checked our supplies, while Mr. Andrew and Mr. Joan debated logistics up front. The jungle loomed as we arrived, its canopy a green fortress, the air thick and dry, unnatural for its lush heart. My skin prickled, a warning I brushed off as fatigue. See the jungle now, its shadows shifting, alive with eyes you can't meet. Let me pause here. At 16, I camped with my cousin in a state park. A deer crashed through our sight at midnight, its eyes wild, fleeing something we never saw. That primal fear of nature turning predator stayed with me. We pitched tents in a clearing, the ground spongy underfoot, the heat pressing like a hand. Kevin frowned, his voice low. The animals feel off, no birds, no rustle. Carlos scoffed. What animals? I haven't seen a bug. His laugh broke the tension, but I nodded, uneasy. I'd spotted birds on the drive, darting erratically, like they were running from a storm. Sammy whispered, "We should leave." Martha snapped, "Why? Scared of bugs?" I backed Sammy, the jungle's silence too loud, but Mr. Andrew cut us off. "We start filming tomorrow. Eat, sleep, move on." Mr. Joan echoed him, retreating to his tent, his dismissal final. Jonathan muttered, "This is crap." But we obeyed. The teacher's authority a chain we couldn't break. Dinner was silent, our canned beans tasteless, the jungle's heat stealing our appetite. We crawled into tents, the canvas stifling, and I lay awake, the absence of night sounds deafening. A scream shattered the dark. Mr. Andrew, gone to relieve himself minutes before. We scrambled out, flashlights slicing the night, and found him, in a clearing, 2 tigers tearing him apart. their jaws slick with blood, snarling over his limbs like a prize. His eyes wide and glassy stared at nothing, his scream frozen in death. See him now, broken, the jungle claiming its toll. We froze, breath shallow, then bolted for the tents, instinct screaming run. More growls echoed, closer, the ground trembling under heavy paws. "The cars!" Jonathan yelled, and we veered, piling into our van, doors slamming, locks clicking. My heart stopped. Martha was gone. "Where's she?" I gasped, my voice thin. Sammy, trembling, said, "Maybe the other car." A tiger lunged, its claws raking the hood, the metal shrieking. Two more appeared, their eyes glinting, circling like specters. Carlos's voice shook. "They'll break in." Martha's scream pierced the night, raw and desperate from the tents. She'd hidden there alone. I choked, "We have to help." But Sammy's sob cut through. "We can't. They're everywhere." She was right. Survival crushed our courage. Martha's cry a wound we couldn't heal. The tigers paused, their circling slowing, then sat, staring, their gazes heavy as stone. Half an hour dragged, our breaths loud in the van's stale air. Carlos whispered, "Let's drive." Sammy protested, "Our gear's in the tents." He snapped, "Life or stuff, Sam?" I nodded, fear overriding logic, but hesitated. "None of us can drive." Carlos, eyes down, admitted, "I can. I lied about not wanting to drive here." We agreed, no choice left, and he started the engine, its roar waking the tigers. They charged, claws flashing, but Carlos floored it, the van lurching, tires spitting dirt. I glanced back. The other car with Jonathan, Mr. Joan, and Grace followed, tigers snapping at its wheels. Feel that terror, the jungle chasing you, its hunger endless? 15 minutes later, the growls faded, the jungle releasing us. We stopped an hour out, safe, our breaths ragged. Jonathan's car pulled up 10 minutes behind, but only 3 figures sat inside. Jonathan, Mr. Joan, Grace. Sammy's voice broke. "Where's Kevin?" Mr. Joan's face was stone. "We couldn't risk it." Grace, voice hollow, said Kevin, had crept to the tents when the tigers calmed, but they fled when the beast stirred, leaving him. Sammy collapsed, her sobs a knife in the silence. The drive back was mute, 10 hours of wind and grief. Carlos dropping us at our homes, his eyes avoiding ours. At college, the director summoned us, his office cold. 2 others from another team had faced similar attacks, their stories mirroring ours. Days later, news broke. A fire ravaged the jungle, fire crews battling it spread. The tigers, starved by fleeing prey, had turned on us, the director said. But the worst came last. Jonathan had filmed it all, Mr. Andrews' death, Martha's, screams our flight, and submitted it, retitling our documentary Predators. See that footage now, blood and terror framed for glory, a betrayal sharper than claws. My stomach churned, his ambition a poison I couldn't unsee. The jungle's fire burned on, but Jonathan's act scorched deeper, a scar I carry still. I walk past forests now, their edges dark, and hear Martha's scream, see Kevin's shadow, the camera's cold eye watching. 8 years ago, under a moonless sky, I wandered the deserted beach behind my grandmother's old house, the waves whispering secrets to the night. The air was heavy with salt and decay, the sand cold beneath my bare feet. Then I saw her, a woman in a white dress sitting where the tide kissed the shore, her long black hair swaying like seaweed. She was still, too still, her body half soaked by the sea as if she belonged to it. I froze, my breath catching as her head turned slightly, her face hidden in shadow. Was she lost in grief? Or was she something else, something that didn't belong among the living? The ocean's roar filled my ears, a relentless pulse that drowned out the world. The house behind me, its weathered boards creaking in the wind, felt miles away, its warmth unreachable. I was alone with her, this figure, who seemed woven from moonlight and mist. My heart thudded, a warning I couldn't name as the waves lapped at her dress, staining it darker. Is she real? The question took root, a seed of dread that sprouted in the silence. I stepped back, my foot sinking into wet sand, and the night seemed to tighten around me, its secrets pressing against my skin. This wasn't just a midnight walk. It was the beginning of a nightmare that blurred the line between life and death, a moment that would haunt me forever. Stay with me, because this story is about the terror of meeting a ghost, and the truth that cuts deeper than any claw. The next morning I woke in a sweat, the image of the woman burned into my mind. The house was alive with familiar sounds. Gabriella humming in the kitchen, Derek's cartoons blaring from the living room. But the beach was a different world, one I couldn't unsee. Is she real? The question looped, a rhythm that shadowed my thoughts as I sipped coffee, staring out the window, where the waves rolled in gray and restless. Gabriella, my fiancée, noticed my unease, her brown eyes narrowing. "You okay, love?" she asked, her hand warm on mine. I told her about the woman, her white dress, her stillness, the way the sea seemed to claim her. "Maybe she's depressed," I said, grasping for logic. "Maybe a breakup." Gabriella smirked, her voice teasing. "Or a ghost," she said, laughing, but the word hung heavy, a spark that ignited my doubt. She recounted a story her aunt once told about a drowned sailor whose spirit wandered the shore calling for his lost wife. "Don't go chasing spirits," she warned, but her smile faded when she saw my face. Is she real? For weeks, I saw her every night. I'd stand at the window, glass of whiskey in hand, watching her sit by the tide, her form unchanging, her hair a dark veil. The beach was empty save for her, the stars above and the sea below her only companions. I told myself she was human, a soul in pain, but her silence was unnatural, her presence too constant. I'd call out sometimes, my voice swallowed by the wind, but she never answered, never moved. The house grew colder, its shadows deeper, as if her presence seeped through the walls, pulling me into her world. A neighbor, old Mrs. Callahan, shared a tale over tea one afternoon. Decades ago, a young woman had vanished on this beach, her body never found. "Some say she still walks," she said, her voice low, her eyes distant. I nodded, polite but skeptical, yet her words clung to me, a mirror to my own fears. Gabriella's jests about ghosts no longer felt funny, and the woman's nightly vigil became my obsession. One night, driven by a mix of pity and curiosity, I decided to approach her. The moon was a faint sliver, the beach a canvas of silver and black. "Stay calm," I told myself, pulling on my jacket, the air sharp with salt and seaweed. The sand crunched under my boots, each step heavier, as if the sea itself resisted me. She sat as always, her white dress sodden, her hair dripping like ink. I stopped a few feet away, my voice trembling. "Are you okay?" I asked, the words feeble against the waves' roar. She didn't move, but the air grew thick, oppressive, like a storm about to break. I stepped closer, heart pounding, and asked again, louder, "Do you need help?" Her head turned, slow and deliberate, revealing a face that stopped my breath. Her lips were chapped, cracked like dry earth. Her eyes sunken, ringed with dark circles that seemed to swallow the light. She stared, unblinking, her gaze a void that pulled me in. I staggered back, my boots sinking, but her silence was louder than any scream. Then, without warning, her hands shot out, cold and bony, grabbing my ankles. Her nails, sharp, impossibly long, dug into my flesh, drawing blood that mingled with the tide. "Get free," my mind screamed. But she yanked me toward the water, her strength unnatural, her face blank, devoid of emotion. The sea rushed up, icy and relentless, swallowing my legs as I thrashed. Her nails tore deeper, a burning pain that blurred my vision, and I saw it. Her eyes weren't human but hollow, like portals to a place beyond life. Panic took over. I clawed at her wrists, my hands slipping on her slick skin, and wrapped my fingers around her throat, squeezing with all my strength. Her grip loosened, her body going limp, and I stumbled back, gasping, the waves pulling at me. I ran, my boots pounding the sand, the house's lights a beacon in the dark. I burst inside, locking the door, my hands shaking as I dialed Gabriella. "Something attacked me," I gasped, my voice raw, her soothing words a lifeline in the chaos. The police arrived at dawn, their flashlights cutting through the mist as they scoured the beach. Gabriella held me, her arms tight, as I recounted the attack, my legs still stinging from Sarah's nails. The lead officer, a grizzled man named Carter, returned with a grim face. "We found her," he said, his voice low. "Her name was Sarah." My stomach dropped. She wasn't a ghost, she was real, a woman broken by a lifetime of pain. Carter explained. Sarah had a severe mental illness, rooted in years of abuse by her uncle and cousins. Rescued by a women's organization, she'd never healed. Her fear of men twisting into violence. "She likely saw you as a threat," he said, his eyes heavy with pity. I sat numb, the house's walls closing in, the scent of salt and blood lingering in my nose. I'd killed her. Not a spirit but a human, her life ended by my hands. The guilt was a weight, crushing, as I pictured her face. Not the hollow-eyed monster, but a girl who'd suffered too much. A local fisherman, Mr. Torres, told me later about Sarah's sightings on the beach. She'd sit there for hours, he said, staring at the sea like she was waiting for something. His story echoed my own, a reminder that I'd ignored the signs, her stillness, her silence, the warnings in her eyes. The police ruled it self-defense, my sentence short, but prison couldn't erase the truth. I'd taken a life, however broken. I was released 2 years ago. The beach house now a memory, sold to escape its ghosts. But Sarah follows me, her face, my anchor, a reminder of the night I crossed a line I can't uncross. Is she real? The question haunts me, a specter in every wave, every shadow. Each year I return to her grave, a simple stone by the sea, and place white roses, their petals carried away by the tide. It's my penance, a futile attempt to atone. Gabriella and Derek stood by me, their love a light in my darkness. "We'll go hiking next week," I told Derek, his smile easing the weight in my chest. But the beach lingers, its waves whispering Sarah's name. Never forget her, I tell myself. A vow to carry her story, her pain, her truth. She wasn't a ghost, but her memory is real. Relentless, a tide that pulls me under, reminding me that some horrors are born not of the supernatural, but of the human heart. The wind carried the scent of salt and jasmine, weaving through the narrow lanes of the village as I pedaled my rented bike under a twilight sky. It was my birthday, and I was alone in a hippie haven in southern India, chasing freedom after a year that had broken me. The village promised peace, but that night, in a flimsy room with a trembling door, a whisper called my name. And I knew I wasn't alone. My name is Priya, and in October 2019 I decided to do something reckless. Back home in my South Asian country, solo travel for a woman was a gamble, but I was tired of fear. A rough year, job stress, family pressures, a heart bruised by loss, had left me hollow. My birthday was a chance to reclaim myself and a friend's. Glowing stories of this village, a magnet for global wanderers, convinced me to go. My brother helped sway our overprotective mother, but I saw the worry in her eyes. "Be careful," she said, her voice tight. I promised I would. I packed light, but heavy with caution. No pepper spray was available, so I slipped a deodorant can and a small knife into my bag. They felt like talismans against the unknown, though I prayed I'd never need them. The village was a dream at first glance. Colorful murals splashed across mud walls, dreadlocked travelers strumming guitars, the air alive with laughter and incense. I checked into a cheap guest house, its latch barely holding the door. That first night I lay awake, the creak of the ceiling fan blending with distant drum beats. It was unsettling, but nothing happened. I told myself to relax, to embrace the adventure. On my birthday, I woke with a spark of joy. I rented a bike, the kind with a wobbly basket, and pedaled through the village, my hair whipping in the breeze. The world felt mine until I met him. By noon, I visited a guest house my friend had raved about, tucked away from the village's heart. It was quieter, bordered by coconut groves and a sandy path to the beach. The owner, a man in his 40s with a too-wide smile, greeted me. His name was Ravi, and his eyes lingered a beat too long as he showed me around. The guest house had open huts on one side and a row of rooms on the other. I chose a room, its low rent tempting despite the flimsy door and thin patchwork curtains. "Safe here," Ravi said, his voice smooth. I nodded, but my gut whispered otherwise. The room felt exposed, its windows like eyes peering into my soul. I shook off the unease, telling myself I was paranoid. But the knife stayed in my bag, close at hand. I spent the afternoon at a beachside restaurant, chatting with locals I'd met the day before. 2 new guys joined us, Arjun, a city boy from Delhi, and Vikram, a village regular. We clicked, trading stories as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of fire. As night fell, we returned to my guest house, lounging on woven mats under string lights. Ravi was there, hosting a bonfire for his guests, his gaze flicking, to me too often. Arjun and Vikram weren't in the mood for flames, so they left early. I stayed, drawn by the fire's warmth, but Ravi's insistence that I linger made my skin prickle. "Stay a bit," he said, his smile tight. I declined, my voice firm, and headed to my room. The night felt heavier now, the village's charm fading under a veil of doubt. My room was a fortress of flaws. 2 working locks out of 5, curtains that barely hid me from the world. I changed in the bathroom, my heart thudding, and checked, the windows, their glass smudged and bare. I placed the deodorant and knife on my pillow, their weight a small comfort. As I settled into bed, the bonfire's murmur faded, replaced by the hum of crickets and the distant sea. Then it came, a whisper, soft but clear, calling my name. "Priya. Priya." My breath caught, my body rigid. It wasn't the wind. It was human, close, just beyond the door. I stared at the curtains, expecting a shadow, but saw nothing. Was I dreaming? No, it was real. I ignored it, my pulse racing, and turned off the light, plunging the room into darkness. I gripped the knife, its handle cold against my palm, and moved the bin against the door, a feeble barrier. An hour passed, my eyes darting between windows when the door rattled. Violent, relentless, as if someone was forcing it open. The locks groaned, the wood trembling under the assault. I stood, deodorant in one hand, knife in the other, my mouth dry, my heart a drumbeat of terror. The rattling stopped, abrupt and eerie, leaving a silence that suffocated. I collapsed onto the bed, my body shaking, waiting for the next sound, the next move. None came, but sleep was impossible. At 6 a.m., sunlight crept through the curtains, weak and gray. The door rattled again, frantic, and I shot up, knife raised, ready to fight. It stopped as quickly as it began. I crept to the door, my breath shallow, and saw the bin had shifted, its edge misaligned. Something, or someone, had been there. I sank back, my mind spinning. Was it Ravi, his helper, or a stranger, drawn by my solitude? I dressed quickly, my hands trembling, the knife tucked into my waistband. I needed to get through the day, to survive this place, but the fear clung to me like damp cloth. I met Arjun and Vikram for a trek, forcing a smile as we climbed a hill to watch the sunset. The village's beauty mocked me, its music and laughter a cruel contrast to my dread. Ravi was there, playing a drum with the locals, his eyes finding mine too often. At 10 p.m., I returned to the guest house, my stomach knotting when Ravi texted, "Where are you?" I ignored it, sitting with Arjun and Vikram until they left. Ravi's next words chilled me. "I was just thinking about you," he said, showing me his unsent message. His gaze was unreadable, probing. I lied, saying I was tired and fled to my room. The locks clicked shut, but they felt like paper against the night. I waited breathless for the whisper to return. Nothing happened that night, a mercy I didn't trust. I checked out the next morning, leaving my bag at the reception to avoid being alone with Ravi. I spent the day with Arjun and Vikram, my eyes scanning for threats until my bus arrived at 5 p.m. I thanked Ravi, my voice flat, and left, the village shrinking in the rearview mirror. I never learned who whispered my name, who shook my door. Ravi, his helper, or someone else lurking in the shadows? Back home, I'm cautious now, my trust in strangers fractured. The village's peace was a lie, hiding a darkness I barely escaped. And sometimes, in the quiet of night, I hear it again. My name, soft and sinister, calling me back. Dark Hollow was a lie. A postcard-perfect neighborhood draped in green, its old houses whispering of safety while hiding something rotten. I grew up there, a teenager in the late 90s, my days filled with bike rides and summer laughter, but my nights haunted by the house at the end of our street. The Ward family lived there, their presence a stain on our idyllic world, their eyes always watching, their voices carrying secrets no one dared name. They were a nightmare made flesh, and I still shiver when I think of them, wondering if they were human at all. Dark Hollow, just 20 minutes from Pittsburgh, was a place where kids roamed free, where porches creaked under the weight of family dinners. But the Ward house stood apart, its peeling paint and overgrown lawn a warning. My family was typical. Dad worked long hours. Mom baked cookies for bake sales. My older brother teased me mercilessly. I was 15, navigating high school and first crushes, but the Wards cast a shadow over everything. "Stay away from them," Mom would say, her voice tight, never explaining why. I learned early that some truths were better left unspoken. The Wards were a family of 4, each more unsettling than the last. Winston, or Win, was the patriarch, a man whose smile never reached his eyes. He was polite to me, too polite, his words dripping with a charm that felt like a trap. "Look at him," I'd tell myself, catching his gaze linger too long as I walked past their house. His eyes were hungry, a predator's stare, glinting with something dark. Once, in a convenience store downtown. He followed me through the aisles, his footsteps soft but deliberate. I pretended to browse, my heart pounding, until he stood too close, his breath heavy, sniffing the air like I was prey. I fled, leaving my snacks behind, his chuckle echoing in my ears. To men, he was a beast. My brother once turned his car in their driveway, and Wynn charged out with a baseball bat, his face twisted with rage. He would have smashed it, my brother swore, his voice shaking. Maggie, Wynn's wife, was a ghost in garish makeup, her face painted like a cracked doll. She was younger than Wynn, but her thin eyebrows and caked foundation aged her, as if she were hiding from time itself. She sat on their porch daily, knitting a tangle of lime green yarn that never became anything, her needles stabbing aimlessly. Her voice was worse, a scratchy sing-song that turned nursery rhymes into curses. Listen closely, I'd think, frozen as she crooned. Ring around the rosy, a pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. Once, I delivered their misrouted mail, my hands trembling as she stared, her eyes wide with feigned surprise. "Do you know the song's meaning?" she asked, her voice a blade. She spoke of the Black Death, rashes, rotting flesh, and death, her words a trance that left me reeling. I ran home, her laughter chasing me. Their younger son, Jacob, was a specter, rarely seen without his face painted in crude war stripes, a makeshift headdress trailing feathers. His obsession with Native American culture wasn't cultural appreciation, it was a twisted fixation, his eyes gleaming with malice. He carried a bow and arrow, the tips supposedly rubber, but I saw them glint like steel once, aimed at me as I biked by. "Run now," my mind screamed, and I pedaled until my lungs burned. Neighbors whispered he'd been seen with dead squirrels, their bodies limp in his hands, but no one caught him in the act. A social worker visited once, her face pale as she left, but nothing changed. Jacob's silence was louder than words, a promise of something broken inside. Johnny, the older son, was a storm waiting to break. In high school, he growled at anyone who came too close, his fists always clenched. He'd asked out a shy girl, his lab partner, her rejection sparking a fury that simmered for weeks. He ignored her in class, sabotaging their work until she begged for a new partner. Then one evening she drove home alone, or so she thought. Look behind you, her instincts might have warned too late. Johnny was in her back seat, his grin a slash of malice in the rearview mirror. She crashed, hospitalized for a week while Johnny got a slap on the wrist, the police calling it teenage pranks. Her family never pressed charges, their fear of the wards palpable. I'd heard rumors of another incident, a dog gone missing. After barking at Johnny, its collar found in their yard, but no proof surfaced. The wards were a plague, their house a festering wound. Years before, another family, the Millers, had lived nearby, their son vanishing after playing near the ward property. The police found nothing but whispers blamed Wynn's late-night walks. They're dangerous, the neighborhood agreed, but fear kept us silent. We avoided their house, crossing the street, our eyes down. The tension built, a hum of dread, until the day a "for sale" sign appeared in their yard. Relief swept dark, hollow, a collective exhale, though no one dared celebrate openly. When they left, the house stood empty, its windows dark, but the air felt lighter. The wards became a legend, a tale told around campfires, their story growing with each retelling. I wondered if we'd imagined their menace, but the memories were too sharp. Wynn's stare, Maggie's song, Jacob's arrows, Johnny's grin. They were real, I knew. Their threat a weight I carried. I drive through Dark Hollow now, the neighborhood, unchanged. But the ward house is a scar, its emptiness a warning. I fear for wherever they went, for the lives they might shatter. They're out there, the thought loops, anchored to that house, to the shadows they left behind. Dark Hollow is free, but I'll never escape the wards, their darkness a part of me forever. Her eyes were emeralds in the tinder glow, promising a night I'd never forget. But as Lilith led me through the shadows of the Museum of Death, her voice purring with delight over decay, I realized I'd stepped into a nightmare wearing her. Smile, Los Angeles was my canvas, a city of fleeting connections and endless nights. I was in my mid-20s, a freelance coder drifting through life, my evenings spent swiping on Tinder and Bumble, chasing sparks in the digital haze. I wasn't looking for love, just a thrill, a story, a moment to feel alive. Then I found her, Lilith. Her profile was a magnet, pigtails framing a gothic smirk, green eyes that seemed to pulse, and a bio that read, "Let's make death jealous." I swiped right, heart pounding, expecting a bot. Match. I stared at my phone, the city's neon bleeding through my window, and whispered, "No way." She messaged first, her words sharp and playful, pulling me in like a tide. We bantered for days. Music, tattoos, her job at a coffee shop near the Getty. She was electric, a mix of danger and charm, and when she suggested meeting after her shift, I couldn't resist. "I know a special place," she typed. "Somewhere you'll never forget." Embedded command. Say yes. Dive in. I agreed, picturing a dive bar or a rooftop lounge, not the abyss she'd lead me to. The night was warm, Hollywood Boulevard buzzing, with tourists and street performers. I pulled up to her coffee shop, my palms sweaty, and there she was, Lilith leaning against a lamppost, her black dress clinging to her like a second skin. Her pigtails swayed as she sauntered over, her grin both inviting and unsettling. Sensory overload, the hum of traffic, the tang of espresso on her breath, the glint of her silver rings. "Ready for an adventure?" she asked, her voice low, almost a purr. I nodded, my gut tingling with excitement and something I couldn't name. She kept the destination a secret, directing me through the city's maze, her fingers tapping the dashboard to a song only she heard, nested storytelling. I remembered a high school date, a girl who took me to a haunted house, her laughter masking a cruel prank. I pushed the memory away, focusing on Lilith's profile against the city lights. When she finally said, "Museum of Death?" I laughed, thinking it was a joke. But her eyes were serious, gleaming with anticipation. "Trust me," she said. "It's perfect." The museum squatted on Hollywood Boulevard, its facade dark and uninviting, a relic of forgotten horrors. The street outside was gritty, littered with cigarette butts and broken dreams. Sensory overload, the faint buzz of neon, the stale air, the distant wail of a siren. I hesitated, but Lilith's hand brushed mine, her touch electric. "Come on," she urged, pulling me inside. The interior was a claustrophobic maze, walls crammed with death masks, preserved body parts, and grainy photos of crime scenes. It was grotesque but fascinating, a carnival of the macabre. At first I was intrigued, my eyes darting from exhibit to exhibit, Lilith's commentary sharp and witty. But as we moved deeper, her tone shifted, her voice softening, almost reverent. She paused at a display of a serial killer's tools, her fingers hovering over the glass. "Isn't it beautiful?" she murmured, her eyes distant. Pattern interruption. The word beautiful jarred me, twisting the scene into something sinister. I forced a laugh. "You're kidding, right?" But she wasn't. Her gaze locked on mine, intense, unblinking. Trance loop. Her eyes, her voice, her words, looping, pulling me under. She started asking questions, each one sharper, more invasive. "How would you want to die?" she asked, her tone casual but her eyes hungry. I shrugged, uneasy. I wouldn't. Not anytime soon. She pouted, stepping closer, her perfume cloying. Everyone has a way. What's yours? Embedded. Command. Answer her. Don't look away. I mumbled something about a quick, painless end, but she scoffed. Boring, she said, her voice dripping with disdain. Then she began to talk, her words a dark river I couldn't escape. She spoke of hypothermia, how it wraps you in warmth before stopping your heart, how victims strip naked in the snow, surrendering to a false embrace. It's poetic, she said, her smile curling like smoke. I nodded, my throat tight, the museum's shadows pressing in. Sensory overload, the flicker of dim lights, the musty air, the weight of her stare. She moved to another exhibit, a photo of a drowned body, and her voice dropped to a whisper. Drowning's better. Imagine you naked at the bottom of a pool, an audience watching as you thrash, then go still. It's intimate. My stomach churned, but I couldn't look away. She spoke of power, of taking a life, how it would eclipse any high, drugs, sex, anything. It's control, she said, her eyes alight. Pure, raw control. Trance loop. Control, death. Her smile, looping, suffocating. She described a Viking ritual, peeling skin to make wings, calling it art, her voice trembling with awe. I wanted to leave, to run, but her presence pinned me, a moth to her flame. Then she turned, her hand brushing my arm, her voice a velvet blade. I'd keep you, pet, she said, chained at the end of my bed, mine to play with. Pattern, interruption. The word pet snapped me awake, horror flooding my veins. I laughed, a shaky sound backing away. You're intense, I said, hoping to lighten the mood. She didn't laugh. Her eyes followed me, unblinking, a predator, sizing up prey, anchoring. Her eyes, that word, the museum's dark, they chained me to that moment. I suggested leaving, my voice too high, and she agreed, her smile never faltering. The drive back was torture, her silence heavier than her words. She asked me to stop blocks from her place, saying, "You can't be too careful with psychos on these apps." Irony or a warning? I didn't care. I sped home, my hands shaking, and blocked her number, her profile, every trace of her. Embedded command, erase her, stay safe. But Lilith didn't vanish. She haunted me, her words echoing in the quiet of my apartment. I saw her eyes in every shadow, heard her voice in the city's hum. Trance loop. Her eyes, her words, her grin, looping endlessly. I stopped swiping, deleted the apps, but the fear lingered. What was she? A thrill seeker? A killer? Or something? Worse, something I couldn't name? Nested storytelling. My cousin once met a guy online, charming until he followed her home, his charm a mask for obsession. Lilith was no mask. She was raw, unfiltered, a glimpse into darkness. I avoid Hollywood Boulevard now, flinch at gothic girls in coffee shops, check my locks twice. Anchoring, the museum, her touch, her voice. They're my prison. I wonder if she's out there, luring another match into her world, her smile promising pleasure but delivering dread. I wonder what she'd have done if I'd stayed, if I'd answered her questions differently. Sensory overload. The thought of her chains, her control, her laughter in the dark. In the spring of 2017, I was driving home through the winding roads of Rhode Island. the night wrapping around me like a shroud. I'm a skeptic, always have been. Ghosts, spirits, all nonsense debunked by logic and science. But as I took a shortcut through Saunderstown, the world shifted. My headlights caught a glint of chrome, and there it was, a vintage Buick, straight out of the 1930s, blocking a cul-de-sac. Its driver sat motionless, his waxy face grinning through the windshield, eyes locked on mine. Then my car died, the radio erupting with a haunting, wordless tune that wasn't mine. Was this a trick of my tired mind, or had I stumbled into something beyond reason? The air was heavy with damp earth and pine, the dashboard lights flickering like dying stars. My breath fogged the windshield, my hands gripping the wheel as the Buick's grille loomed, massive and gleaming, a relic from a forgotten era. The night was silent save for that eerie music, a trilling loop that seemed to pulse from the Buick itself. What's happening? The question seared my mind, a spark of fear igniting my skepticism. I'd driven this route 100 times, but now it felt alien, the road a trap closing around me. This wasn't just a wrong turn. It was a descent into a nightmare where logic crumbled and the impossible stared back. Stay with me, because this story is about the terror of doubting your own reality and the car that drove straight out of time. I'd left my buddy's place in Newport around 9 p.m., the familiar roads of Narragansett a comfort after a long day. But exhaustion dulled my senses and I missed a turn, ending up in a cul-de-sac I didn't recognize. The houses were dark, their windows blind, the street unnaturally quiet. I cursed, reaching for my phone to check Google Maps when my headlights hit the Buick. It was pristine, its curves gleaming like it had rolled off a Prohibition-era assembly line. What's happening? The question looped, a rhythm that matched. My quickening pulse, I slammed on the brakes, inches from its bumper, my Geo's engine stuttering. The driver didn't move, his hands on the wheel, his face pale and waxy like a ventriloquist's dummy. His grin was fixed, unnerving, his eyes unblinking under slicked-back hair. I mouthed apologies, hands raised, expecting a honk or a curse, but he just stared, his expression unchanging. The air grew thick, the scent of oil and old leather seeping through my cracked window. I gestured for him to pass, but he didn't budge, his Buick a barricade in the night. A story my friend Tom once told flashed through my mind. He'd sworn he saw a Model T on a back road in Maine, its driver a shadowy figure who vanished when he blinked. Road ghosts, he'd called them, laughing, but I'd scoffed, citing fatigue or booze. Now staring at this Buick, Tom's tale felt like a warning. I honked, a weak beep, but the driver's grin widened, as if my fear amused him. What's happening? The question grew louder, a chant that drowned out reason. I shifted to reverse, ready to back out when my car died. Engine, lights, everything. The silence was suffocating, broken only by that music, now louder, spilling from my radio. It was the same tune I'd heard from the Buick, a wordless, looping melody that twisted my gut. My dashboard flickered, lights pulsing in time with the music, and I jiggled the keys, panic rising. The Buick's headlights glared, blinding me, and I shielded my eyes, heart pounding like a drum. Stay still, I told myself, fumbling with the ignition. But nothing worked. The Buick's driver hadn't moved, his grin a frozen mask, his eyes glinting like glass. The music swelled, a trilling nightmare that seemed to come from everywhere. My radio, the Buick, the air itself. My breath came in short gasps, the car's interior closing in, the scent of my own fear sharp and acrid. I leaned out the window shouting, "Move your damn car." But my voice cracked, swallowed by the night. Then as suddenly as it began, the Buick's headlights cut out, plunging me into darkness. My radio fell silent, the dashboard lights dying with it. I blinked, my night vision ruined, and tried the ignition again. The Geo roared to life, its headlights slicing through the cul-de-sac, but the Buick was gone. No taillights, no engine rumble, no tire marks. Just an empty street, the houses staring blankly. What's happening? The question was a scream now, my mind reeling as I spun in my seat, searching for the car that couldn't have vanished. The silence was worse than the music, a void that pressed against my ears. I floored the gas, tires screeching as I fled. The cul-de-sac, the road blurring past. My hands shook, the wheel slick with sweat, the scent of burnt rubber filling the car. I didn't stop until I reached Narragansett, pulling into my driveway, the familiar glow of my porch light a frail comfort. But the Buick's grin followed me, etched into my mind, a puzzle I couldn't solve. A co-worker, Sarah, once shared a tale about her uncle, a trucker who claimed a phantom car trailed him on I-95, its headlights flickering before it dissolved into fog. He never drove that route again, she said, her voice low. I'd rolled my eyes, but now, in the safety of my home, Sarah's story was a mirror to my own, a warning I'd ignored. The Buick wasn't just a car. It was a crack in my reality, a glimpse of something I'd sworn didn't exist. The encounter consumed me, a splinter in my mind. I'm a rational man, a fan of logic, but no explanation fit. Was it a hallucination? A prank? I scoured the internet, researching classic cars. In Rhode Island, my nights lost to grainy photos of 1930s Buicks. I found a 1937 Buick Special for sale in Middleton, a wreck owned by a man whose father bought it at a police auction. He sent me pictures, his voice eager, but I felt guilty stringing him along. The car looked eerily similar, but it was impossible. His was rusted, broken, not the pristine beast I'd seen. I visited a doctor, convinced I'd had a blackout or stroke. He checked my heart, my blood pressure, and declared me fine. Stress can play tricks, he said, but I wasn't stressed, not before that night. I even delved into UFO forums, chasing tales of time loss, but dismissed them as lunacy. Yet, the Buick lingered, its driver's grin a constant shadow. What's happening? The question became an obsession, driving me back to that cul-de-sac, where the street was ordinary, its houses silent, offering no clues. My sister Emma told me about a family legend, a great uncle who saw a horse-drawn carriage on a modern road, its driver vanishing into mist. Some things don't have answers, she said, her voice gentle. I nodded, but her story only fueled my need to know. The Buick wasn't just a car. It was a challenge to everything I believed, a riddle I couldn't let go. Now, years later, I drive those roads with a wary eye. The Buick's grin my anchor, a reminder that reality isn't as solid as I thought. What's happening? The question haunts me, a whisper in every dark stretch of highway, every flicker of my headlights. I don't believe in ghosts, not really, but I can't deny what I saw, what I felt. The Buick, its driver, the music, they're a wound that won't heal, a crack in my skepticism that lets the unknown seep through. I never found answers, never learned if that 1937 Buick held the key. The Middleton owner didn't know its history, and his father's secrets died with him. But I feel it, a presence in every empty road, every silent night. Never stop questioning, I tell myself. A vow to face the inexplicable, to hold fast to reason even as it frays. The Buick may be gone, but its shadow drives with me, a passenger I can't shake, a warning that some roads lead not to home, but to the edge of reality itself. The house was too quiet. Its silence a weight that pressed against my chest as I lay on the living room couch. It was 2 a.m., and the world outside was asleep, but I was wide awake, my heart thudding. Then it came. A soft, deliberate jiggle of the front doorknob, like someone testing my sanctuary. I was 15, alone, and that night I learned my home wasn't safe. Something was trying to get in. My name is Sam, and at 15 I was living a life no kid should. My parents were gone. Not dead, but absent, their neglect a shadow I couldn't escape. The house, a creaky 2-story in a quiet suburb, was mine by default. I slept on the couch, not the upstairs bedrooms, because it let me hear everything. The front door, the back, the windows. It was my fortress, my control. But control is a lie when you're alone. I took sleeping pills to dull the loneliness, but they trapped me in a fog, my mind sluggish when I needed it most. That night, the fog parted and fear took its place. The knob's jiggle was slow at first, cautious, as if the intruder didn't want to wake me. I froze, my breath shallow, the pill's haze making my limbs heavy. The sound persisted, growing sharper, more insistent, like anger seeping through the wood. I gripped the metal baseball bat beside the couch, its cold handle grounding me. I wanted to call the police, but I couldn't. An unemancipated minor living alone. They'd drag me to foster care and my parents would face charges. I was trapped, my silence my only shield. The jiggling stopped, abrupt and eerie, leaving a void that felt alive. I lay still, eyes fixed on the door, waiting for the next move. None came, but sleep was a stranger now. Days passed, uneasy but quiet. I checked the locks obsessively, my bat never far. School was a blur, my mind replaying that night, wondering who or what had been outside. I told myself it was a prank, a drunk, a mistake. But the house felt different. Its corners darker, its silence heavier. I doubled my pill dose, desperate for rest, but it only deepened the fog. Then, it happened again, worse this time. A sound from upstairs, a grinding scrape like a door forced open. My eyes snapped open, my body rigid, the pill's grip loosening under a surge of adrenaline. It was past midnight, the house cloaked in shadow. The noise wasn't the wind or the house settling. It was deliberate, heavy, the kind of sound that comes from weight and intent. My bedroom doors upstairs were sticky, requiring force to open, and this was unmistakable. I sat up, clutching the bat, my ears straining. Another sound followed, a faint creak like springs shifting under weight. Someone was in my house. The air turned cold, my skin prickling. I felt eyes on me, though I saw nothing. The pills blurred my thoughts, but fear sharpened them. Was I dreaming? No. This was real. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, my mind torn between hiding and fighting. The silence stretched, oppressive, until a new sound froze my blood, a soft shuffle, like footsteps on the stairs. I turned, my eyes locking on the staircase parallel to the living room. Halfway down, a figure crouched, long hair spilling over a shadowed face. He was watching me, his gaze a blade in the dark. Our eyes met, though I couldn't see his clearly. Time stopped, the world narrowing to that moment. Me, the bat, and the stranger who'd breached my home. My heart screamed, but my body was stone. He moved, slow and deliberate, standing without turning, backing up the stairs like a ghost retreating. I gripped the bat tighter, my knuckles white, waiting for him to lunge, to return. He didn't. The stairs fell silent, the house swallowing him whole. I stayed awake, bat in hand, until dawn painted the windows gray. I didn't sleep, didn't dare. Morning brought no answers, only questions. Had he been real? The pills played tricks, but the fear was raw, undeniable. I needed to know. I called my boyfriend Jake to check the house with me. As we approached, he pointed upstairs. "Your window's open." My stomach dropped. The bedroom with the sticky door, its window was wide, curtains fluttering. I told Jake everything, the knob, the stairs, the figure. We searched every room, every closet, finding nothing but dust and shadows. The window was unlatched, its frame worn, an easy entry. "Maybe a homeless guy," Jake said, his voice uneasy. "Thought the place was empty." I nodded, wanting to believe it, but the truth felt darker. We locked the window, its click a hollow promise. I didn't take a pill that night, my senses razor sharp, the bat my only comfort. I needed to be ready. Sleep came in fragments, shattered by another sound, the same grinding scrape from upstairs. My eyes flew open, my body surging with adrenaline. The door again, forced open, deliberate. I was done hiding. I grabbed the bat, flipped on the lights, and shouted, "I'm coming up, get out!" My voice echoed, bold but brittle, masking, the terror clawing my chest. The stairs loomed, each step a test of courage. I climbed, bat raised, my breath ragged, expecting him at every turn. The house watched, its silence a trap. Upstairs, the hallway was empty, the bedroom door ajar. I checked every room, every closet, my bat trembling in my grip. Nothing. The window was locked, untouched. I searched downstairs, my heart pounding, but found no trace. I laughed, a shaky sound, feeling foolish yet relieved. Maybe it was the house, its old bones groaning. Maybe I was safe. Morning came and I dressed for school, the bat still close. I glanced at the bedroom door, then froze. The window was open again, its latch undone, curtains swaying in the breeze. A chill ran through me, my mind racing. I hadn't checked under the beds last night. The thought hit like a blow. Someone could have been there, curled in the dark, watching as I searched. My knees buckled, the bat slipping from my hand. I grabbed my bag and fled, the house's silence mocking me as I ran. I never went back alone. Jake stayed over. The locks changed, but the fear lingered. I was lucky, I know. If I'd looked under that bed, if I'd met those eyes in the dark, this story might have ended differently. Now, years later, I live far from that house, but its shadow follows. I check my locks, my windows, my closets every night. I sleep with a light on, the bat replaced by a gun. The figure on the stairs haunts me, his face a blank I can't fill. Was he a drifter, a predator, or something else, drawn to my loneliness? Sometimes, in the dead of night, I hear that jiggle, that scrape, and I wonder if he's still out there, waiting for another empty house, another kid alone. The house was a labyrinth of shadows, its 2 stories creaking like a living thing, each groan a warning I couldn't decipher. At 15, I called it home, though it felt more like a cage, its empty rooms echoing with absence. I slept on the living room couch, not out of choice but survival. Its central spot let me hear every sound, every exit within reach. At night, the world outside pressed against the windows, and I lay awake, my heart a drumbeat, waiting for something to break, the silence. One night at 2 a.m. it did. A slow, deliberate rattle at the front door, like fingers testing my world's edges. I wasn't supposed to be alone. My parents were gone. Dad's job kept him on the road. Mom's visits to her sister stretched into weeks. They trusted me to manage, a latchkey kid hardened by necessity, but I knew the risks. At 15, I was a minor, unprotected, and calling the police could mean foster care, a fate I dreaded more than solitude. The house was old, its peeling wallpaper and sagging floors a relic of better days. I'd chosen the couch for its vantage point, the front door to my left, the back to my right, the staircase looming ahead. A metal baseball bat rested by my side, my only defense in a world that felt too big. That first night, the rattle came like a thief's caress, soft but insistent. I jolted upright, my breath shallow, the darkness thick around me. Listen closely, I told myself, straining to hear over the pounding in my chest. The knob jiggled, cautious at first, then harder, a frustrated twist that spoke of intent. I gripped, the bat, its cold steel grounding me, but stayed frozen, fear locking my limbs. The sound stopped, replaced by footsteps crunching toward the back door. Another rattle, sharper, but that lock held too. I waited, expecting a window to shatter, a door to give, but silence returned, heavy and mocking. "They're gone," I whispered, but stayed awake, eyes darting to every shadow, until dawn bled through the curtains. I didn't tell anyone, not my parents, not my boyfriend, Jake. Admitting fear felt like surrender, and I needed to prove I could handle this. But the house felt different after that, its corners darker, its quiet a lie. A few nights later, under the haze of sleeping pills, I woke to a sound that cut through my fog. A scrape, a pop, like wood forced apart. The upstairs door, always sticky, had opened. Was it a dream? The pills blurred reality, my body heavy, caught in sleep paralysis. I strained to move, my eyes fixed on the ceiling as another sound came. Wood grinding, a door closing, then the faint creak of bed springs. "Someone's up there," my mind screamed, but my limbs betrayed me, trapped in a half-wake nightmare. I drifted back to sleep, the sounds fading, until a new sensation pulled me awake, a prickling on my skin, the weight of eyes. "Look now," my instincts urged, and I turned my head, heart lurching. On the staircase halfway down, a figure crouched, a man, his long hair draped like a curtain, his face lost in shadow. His gaze burned through the dark, locking with mine, a silent challenge. I fumbled for the bat, my fingers clumsy, and he rose, slow and deliberate, backing up the stairs without turning. He's still there, I thought, waiting for footsteps, a door, anything. But the house was silent, as if he'd dissolved into the walls. I didn't sleep. My bat clutched tight, until sunlight chased the shadows away. At school, I was a ghost, my mind replaying the night. Jake noticed, his concern breaking through my silence. That evening, he came over, his presence a fragile shield. "Your windows are open," he said, pointing upstairs. My stomach dropped. The sticky doors room, its window wide, curtains fluttering. I told him everything, my voice shaking, and we searched the house, his flashlight slicing through the gloom. The rooms were empty, closets bare, but the open window felt like a violation. They were here, I knew, locking it with trembling hands. Jake stayed late, his jokes a weak defense against the house's weight. I skipped my pills that night, determined to stay alert. The third night, the sound returned, another scrape, unmistakable, from upstairs. This is real, I told myself, adrenaline burning away doubt. I was done hiding. I grabbed the bat, flipped on the lights, and shouted, "I'm coming up! Get out!" My voice echoed, bold but brittle, as I climbed the stairs, each step a test. The sticky door was ajar, the room empty, but the window was open again, its frame scratched, as if clawed. I checked closets, corners, my breath ragged, finding nothing. Downstairs was clear too, but the emptiness mocked me. I felt foolish, yet terrified, the bat heavy in my hands. I stayed at Jake's that night, the house too alive with threat. Morning brought no answers. As I grabbed my backpack for school, I noticed the window open again, a cold breeze curling through. I locked it, I knew, my heart sinking. Then, a thought struck like lightning. I hadn't checked under the beds. The image froze me. A figure curled in the dark, waiting as I searched, inches away. They were there, the thought looped, a trance of terror. I left without looking, the bat forgotten, my relief at escaping matched by dread. What if I'd seen him? The question haunted me, a shadow I couldn't shake. Years later, I pass that house sometimes, its new owners oblivious to its secrets. I see myself on that couch, bat in hand, the staircase looming, and feel it again, the rattle, the eyes, the open window. He was so close, the memory anchors, a reminder that safety is a lie, that some threats hide just out of sight. I wonder if he's still out there, waiting for another house, another boy. The shadow beneath the bed never leaves. Me, its presence a wound that never heals. The night was still. The parking ramp a silent maze of concrete, but her eyes burned through the dark, fixed on me with a hatred I couldn't fathom. I thought I was safe in my shack, my little fortress. Then I saw her shadow move, and the world turned cold. I'm a night shift security guard, a job that suits my quiet nature. The pay's decent, the hours long, but the solitude of a downtown parking ramp gives me space to think. I'm small, barely 5 feet, no muscle to boast, and unarmed, just a radio and a flashlight to keep me company. The ramp is massive, a concrete labyrinth serving a corporate building, its levels spiraling into shadows. My routine is simple: an hour in the guard shack, a walk around the perimeter, then back. Most nights, it's just me, the hum of fluorescent lights, and the occasional echo of a distant car. But some nights the shadows breathe. The shack is my haven, a 10-foot cube of glass and metal at the ramp's entrance, with a clear view of the lot and the ATM vestibule nearby. That vestibule is open 24/7, a magnet for the city's drifters, seeking shelter. Kicking out homeless folks is the worst part of my job. I hate it, their weary eyes, their quiet pleas. But protocol is clear. Ask them to leave, tell them to leave, then call the cops. I always try to soften the blow, pointing them to shelters, listening if they need to vent. Embedded command: be kind, stay firm. Most understand, shuffling off into the night. But not her. It was a frigid November night, the air sharp with frost. The city hushed under a starless sky. Sensory overload, the crackle of my radio, the bite of cold through my jacket, the faint glow of the ATM's blue screen. I was halfway through my shift, sipping lukewarm coffee in the shack, when I saw her in the vestibule, a woman curled on the floor, her coat tattered, her face hidden by matted hair. She wasn't new. I'd seen her before, muttering to herself, clutching a plastic bag of belongings. I sighed, grabbed my flashlight, and stepped out. "Ma'am," I called, my voice steady but soft. "You can't stay here." "I'm sorry." She stirred, her head lifting, her eyes glinting in the ATM's light. They were dark, unreadable, but something in them twisted my gut. Nested storytelling. My mom once told me about a woman she helped, homeless and desperate, who turned violent when refused. "Trust your instincts," she said. I pushed the memory down, repeating protocol. "You need to leave, ma'am." She stood, slow and deliberate, her bag rustling. "This is bullshit," she spat, her voice rough but low. I nodded, offering a shelter's address, but she ignored me, glaring as she shuffled out. I watched her cross the lot, her figure fading into the bus stop's shadow, just feet from my shack. Trance loop. Her eyes, her glare, her presence, looping in my mind. I returned to the shack, my heart uneasy, her stare lingering like a bruise. She sat at the stop, unmoving, her gaze fixed on me through the glass. I tried to focus. Paperwork, radio checks, but her presence was a weight. pressing harder with each glance. Embedded command: stay calm. Do your job. I decided to walk the ramp early, needing to move, to shake her off. As I passed the vestibule's door, I paused, something pulling me to check the window. Pattern interruption. Instinct overrode routine, a warning I couldn't ignore. I peered out, my breath fogging the glass, and saw it. A faint wobble behind my shack, a shadow shifting where no one should be. My pulse spiked, my flashlight trembling in my hand. It was her, crouched low, her body pressed against the shack's rear wall. Sensory overload, the thud of my heart, the creak of my boots, the icy air stinging my lungs. She wasn't leaving. She was waiting. I ducked back, my mind racing. Why was she there? What did she want? I radioed dispatch, my voice low, reporting a trespasser. She's behind my shack, I whispered, hiding. The operator promised cops within minutes, but minutes felt like hours. I watched from the door, her shadow still, her intent a black hole pulling me in. Then she moved, a sudden jerk, and screamed, a raw, furious sound that shattered the night. She kicked at the junk piled near the shack, bottles and cans scattering, then stormed up the ramp stairwell, her footsteps echoing. My stomach dropped. The upper level had a broken door, unsecured, a gap she could slip through. Panic clawed at me. I gripped my radio, praying the cops would hurry, my eyes darting between the stairwell and the lot. The sirens came, faint at first, then louder, a lifeline in the dark. 2 officers arrived, their flashlights sweeping the ramp. They found her on the 3rd level, shouting, waving her bag like a weapon. They escorted her out, their voices sharp, and she vanished into the night, her curses fading. I thought it was over, but the ramp had one last secret. On my next walk, I checked the lobby mirror near the vestibule door. It was shattered, a jagged hole where a fist had struck, a large shard missing. Pattern interruption. The glint of that shard in my mind's eye, a blade she'd taken. My breath caught, my legs weak. She'd planned it, broken the mirror, taken the shard, hidden behind my shack, waiting for me to step out. Trance loop, the shard, her eyes, her scream, looping, inescapable. I called the cops again, my report shaky, the truth sinking in. She'd meant to hurt me, maybe worse. They took notes, said they'd look for her, but I knew she was gone, a ghost in the city's underbelly. I finished my shift, my hands trembling, every shadow a threat. Anchoring, the shack, her glare, the broken mirror, they chained me to that night. I don't sleep well now. I see her eyes in every dark corner, hear her scream in the wind. I started carrying pepper spray, checking the ramp's mirrors twice a shift, jumping at every noise. My boss says I'm paranoid, but he wasn't there. Didn't feel her hate. I think about her sometimes, about what drove her to that edge. Was it desperation? Madness? Or something darker? A need to break someone else to feel whole? Nested storytelling. A coworker once shared a story of a guard attacked by a vagrant, left bleeding for being too kind. I'd been too kind, too slow to act. But I'm not her victim. I'm tougher now, sharper, my eyes always scanning. Embedded command: stay alert. Trust no one. Yet I wonder if she's out there, clutching that shard, waiting for another night, another guard. In the heart of Paris, under the golden glow of a Montmartre bar, I laughed with strangers, my French halting but earnest, the air alive with the clink of glasses and multilingual chatter. It was a language exchange night, my sanctuary in a city, far from home where I felt bold and free. But then I saw him, A man in the corner, his eyes fixed on me, dark and unyielding, cutting through the crowd like a blade. His stare wasn't curious or kind. It was hungry, possessive, as if he'd already claimed me. My smile faltered, a chill slithering down my spine. Was he just a lonely patron, or had I caught the attention of something dangerous? The bar smelled of spilled wine and warm bread, the hum of conversation wrapping around me like a blanket. But his gaze pierced it all, heavy and inescapable, making the room feel smaller, the lights dimmer. I was 25, new to Paris, chasing adventure, but now my heart pounded, a warning I couldn't name. I sipped my drink, the glass cold against my lips, and glanced away, hoping he'd lose interest. But when I looked back, his eyes were still there, locked on mine. A silent promise that this night wouldn't end easily. Who is he? The question took root, a seed of dread that grew with every breath. This wasn't just a night out. It was the start of a nightmare. A moment when safety slipped, away in the city of light. Stay with me, because this story is about the terror of being hunted, and the shadow that follows you home. The bar buzzed with energy, but I couldn't shake the man's stare. Who is he? The question pulsed in my mind, a rhythm that drowned out the laughter around me. I moved through the crowd, joining a table of exchange students, their accents a comforting mix of Spanish, German, and Japanese. My friend Sophie, a Parisian local, nudged me, her eyes sparkling. "You're killing it tonight," she said, unaware of the weight on my shoulders. I forced a smile, but my gaze darted to the corner. He was still there, nursing a beer, his eyes never leaving me. Half an hour later he approached, weaving through the crowd with a confidence that made my stomach twist. He was tall, maybe 40, with sharp features and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Bonsoir," he said, his voice smooth, accented. "I'm a Parisian, born and raised. You're new here, no?" I nodded, polite but guarded, my fingers tightening around my glass. He leaned closer, his cologne sharp and overpowering. "I saw you the moment you walked in," he said, his tone dropping. "I knew I loved you right then." The words hit like a slap, jarring and absurd. I laughed, thinking it a joke, but his expression was deadly serious, his eyes glinting with an intensity that made my skin crawl. Who is he? The question grew louder, a warning I couldn't ignore. I mumbled an excuse, citing a need for the restroom, and slipped away, my heart racing. Sophie caught my arm, her brow furrowed. "You okay?" she asked. I told her about the man, his declaration, and she frowned. "That's not normal," she said, recounting a story about a friend, harassed at a similar event. A man who wouldn't take no for an answer. Her words echoed my fear, a mirror to the threat unfolding. I stayed near Sophie, hoping the crowd would shield me, but his presence lingered, a shadow at the edge of my vision. Every laugh felt forced. Every sip of wine tasted bitter, as I sensed him watching, waiting for a moment to strike again. Around midnight, I decided to leave, the bar's warmth no longer a refuge. "Stay calm," I told myself, pulling on my coat, the fabric heavy with the night's tension. Sophie offered to walk me to the metro, but I waved her off, not wanting to burden her. The streets of Montmartre were alive with tourists and street artists, their chatter a faint comfort as I headed toward the Anvers station. But the air grew colder, the cobblestones slick under my boots, and a prickle on my neck told me I wasn't alone. I glanced back, and there he was. The man, 50, feet behind, his hands in his pockets, his eyes fixed on me. My breath caught, the city's lights blurring as panic surged. I quickened my pace, weaving through the crowd, the scent of crepes and cigarette smoke thick in the air. But his footsteps followed, steady and deliberate, a rhythm that matched my racing heart. "Keep moving," I urged myself, clutching my phone, its screen a faint glow in the dark. At the metro entrance, I descended the stairs, the tiled walls echoing with my steps. The platform was sparse, a few late-night commuters scattered, their faces buried in phones or books. I stood near a group of students, hoping their presence would deter him, but he appeared at the platform's edge, his figure framed by the flickering fluorescent lights. He was closer now, too close, his cologne cutting through the stale air of the station. "You left so quickly," he said, his voice low, almost intimate. "We weren't done talking." I backed away, my back brushing the cold tiles, my voice trembling. "Please leave me alone," I said, but he stepped forward, his smile twisting into something darker. "You don't mean that," he said. "I know you feel it too." The platform felt like a cage, the distant rumble of an approaching train, my only hope. "Get out," my mind screamed as his hand reached out, grazing my sleeve. The train's headlights pierced the tunnel, its screech a lifeline. I darted through the doors as they opened, shoving past a businessman, my heart pounding. The man lunged, his fingers brushing my coat, but the doors slid shut, trapping him outside. His face pressed against the glass, his eyes burning into mine as the train pulled away, the station fading into darkness. I collapsed into a seat, trembling, the carriage's hum a faint comfort against the terror in my chest. I called my boyfriend, James, my voice shaking as I recounted the night. "Stay on the line," he said, his calm grounding me as I changed lines at Châtelet, scanning every face for the man's shadow. When I reached my apartment, I locked the door, checking it twice. The city's lights outside, a mocking reminder of my vulnerability. I texted Sophie and my friend Clara, warning them about the man, their replies a chorus of shock and concern. Clara shared a story about a stranger who followed her in London, his persistence chillingly similar. Her tale was a warning, a reminder that I'd narrowly escaped. The next day, I reported the incident to the bar's organizer, who promised to ban the man, but his face haunted me. Those eyes, that smile, a predator cloaked in charm. I stopped, attending language exchanges, my evenings confined to my apartment, the city's magic tarnished. Every knock, every shadow sent my heart racing, the fear he'd find me a constant weight. Months later, I'm still in Paris, but the city feels different, its streets a maze of potential threats. Who is he? The question lingers, a specter in every crowded cafe, every metro platform. The man's eyes are my anchor, a reminder of the night I was prey, hunted in a place I'd called home. I carry pepper spray now, my keys clutched like a weapon, my routes planned to avoid dark corners. James checks in nightly, his voice a tether to safety, but the fear remains, a shadow I can't outrun. I wonder if he's still out there, watching another woman, his words of love a trap for the unwary. The bar, once my haven, is a memory I avoid, its lights dimmed by his presence. Never let your guard down, I tell myself, a mantra against the terror of being seen, pursued, claimed. The man may be gone, but his gaze follows me, a ghost in the city of light, a warning that even in Paris danger wears a human face. The rain fell in sheets, turning the streets into rivers of filth as I ran toward the Giovanni mansion. Lightning cracked the sky, illuminating Roberto's silhouette in the doorway, his cigar glowing like a demon's eye. He was waiting for me, his voice low and urgent, promising a future I couldn't refuse. But that night, I didn't know I'd trade my soul for his empire, or that I'd burn it all down in the deep waters of Sardinia. My name is Marco, and I was just a kid with a knack for numbers when my uncle Romano pulled me into the Giovanni web. Fresh out of college, I dreamed of working on presidential campaigns, shaping the world with policy and ideals. But Romano laughed at my naivety. "Politicians are puppets," he said, his voice rough with years of smoke. "Roberto Giovanni owns the strings." One meeting with Roberto and my dreams shifted. He was a mountain of a man, his presence filling the room, his handshake a contract. "You're smart, kid," he said, pressing a wad of $100 bills into my palm. "Buy a suit. Look the part." That was my baptism into the Giovanni world, a world of power, blood, and secrets. I stepped in willingly, blind to the chains waiting to bind me. I learned fast, my ledger becoming the heart of Roberto's empire. His businesses, restaurants, clubs, construction, were fronts for drugs, extortion, and worse. I tracked every dollar, every debt, every name. Politicians, cops, judges, they were all in his pocket, their loyalty bought with cash or fear. I wasn't just a bookkeeper, I was a gatekeeper, trusted with secrets that could topple empires. Roberto treated me like a son, his laughter warm, his trust a rare gift. But his daughters, Talia and Rafina, were a different story. Talia was quiet, her eyes soft with a kindness that didn't belong in this family. Rafina was a storm, her beauty, sharp as a blade, her temper a wildfire. I kept my distance, but fate had other plans. Years passed, my life entwined with the Giovannis. I lived in their shadow, my suits tailored, my bank account swelling, but my freedom shrinking. Then, on a rain-soaked October morning, Roberto called me to his study. The streets outside were flooded, the city choking on its own decay. He stood by the window, his face etched with purpose. "Your family, Marco," he said, his voice low. "And family takes care of each other." I nodded, uneasy, sensing a trap. Then he dropped the bomb. "You're marrying Rafina." My blood ran cold. Rafina, with her cruel smile and vengeful heart, was a sentence, not a bride. I wanted to refuse, but Roberto's eyes held a warning. "Say no, and you're done." I married her, a union forged in fear, not love. Rafina was a whirlwind, her moods swinging from seductive to savage. She spent money like water, flaunted her power, and reminded me daily who her father was. Our marriage was a battlefield, our fights cold and calculated, but we rarely clashed openly. I didn't care enough to argue, and she didn't care enough to stay faithful. Yet her lies cut deeper than I expected. One night she accused me of hitting her, a lie spun to her father while I was out of town. I returned to find Roberto's goon waiting, his fists breaking my nose before I could speak. Rafina watched, her smile a knife in my heart. Roberto called me in the next day, his tone deceptively light. "I know you didn't touch her," he said, leaning back in his chair. "But Rafina gets what she wants. You're my son, Marco. Call me Dad." His words were a mockery, his laughter a slap. He handed me tickets to Italy, a supposed honeymoon, but I saw it for what it was: exile, a leash to keep me in line. That was the moment I broke. The Giovannis had taken everything: my dreams, my freedom, my pride. I wouldn't let them take my soul. Rage burned in my veins, a fire I couldn't quench. I had 3 days to act, 3 days to tear their empire apart. The ledger was my weapon, and the feds were my allies. I worked in secret, copying every file, every transaction, every name. The ledger was a map of the Giovanni's sins: drug routes, bribes, murders. I found a federal agent untouched by Roberto's gold, a man hungry for a big catch. "You want out?" he asked, his eyes sharp. "Give me everything." I did, handing over the keys to their destruction. The feds moved fast, but I was already gone, on a plane to Sardinia with Rafina. her laughter oblivious to the storm I'd unleashed. The sea off Sardinia was calm, its surface a mirror reflecting a sky of endless blue. We boarded a boat. Rufina, in a white dress, her eyes sparkling at the dolphins leaping nearby. She didn't know this was her end. I played my part, smiling as she sipped wine, her guard down. The boat drifted into deep waters, far from shore, the horizon empty. I handed her my phone, dialed Roberto's number, and watched her face crumple as she heard the news. Her father was dead, gunned down by feds when he refused to surrender. She clutched me, sobbing, her nails digging into my arms. "Who did this?" she whispered, her voice raw. I stepped back, my smile cold. "I did," I said, my words a blade. "Your father was a monster, and you're no better." Her eyes widened, fury replacing grief, but it was too late. Two men I'd hired stepped forward, their faces blank. They bound her wrists, her screams, swallowed by the sea. She fought, her hair whipping, her voice cursing me as a murderer. I laughed, the sound hollow. "I didn't kill him," I said. "His sins did. And yours will too." I left her on the boat, a bottle of water and 2 days' supplies her only company. "Come back with me or die out here," I offered. She spat at me, choosing the sea over surrender. The boat shrank in the distance, Rufina a lone figure against the vast blue. I felt nothing, no guilt, no triumph. Only freedom, cold and sharp. I returned to America, took over Roberto's legitimate businesses, and married Talia. Her gentleness healed me, our life a quiet contrast to the chaos I'd left behind. For 6 years I was free, the Giovanni's a fading nightmare. Then one morning a postcard arrived, its edges worn, its stamp from Sardinia. The words were simple, scrawled in a hand I knew too well. "Hey, husband." My blood froze. Rufina was alive. The sea hadn't claimed her, and now she was coming for me. The past I'd buried was rising, its shadow long and hungry. The gas station was an island of light in the dead of night, its flickering neon sign buzzing like a trapped insect. At 2 a.m., the Midwestern city slept, but I was awake, my dispatcher's shift leaving me wired and weary. Rain pattered on my car's hood, the cold seeping through my jacket as I pumped gas, the nozzle's hum a lonely companion. Across the lot, a figure hunched on the curb, rain-soaked and shivering, her presence jarring in the emptiness. Her eyes met mine and something shifted, a prickle of unease, a warning I ignored. "Don't look too long," my mind whispered, but my heart, shaped by years of helping others, pulled me toward her. My job as a dispatcher was about saving people, directing ambulances, calming panicked voices, stitching together lives on the edge. It made me soft, too trusting, a flaw I hadn't questioned until that night. The station was on the city's safer side, far from the alleys I avoided, but its dim lights and deserted pumps felt wrong, like a stage set for trouble. I'd seen worse in my years on the night shift. A man collapsing outside a bar, his breath ragged, a carjacking call that ended in gunfire. "Stay sharp," my trainer had said, recounting a night when a caller's plea turned out to be a trap, luring responders into an ambush. Those stories haunted me, but compassion always won. The woman was middle-aged, her thin frame swallowed by a tattered jacket, her hair plastered to her face. Rain dripped from her chin, her clothes clinging like a second skin, unfit for the biting cold. "Help her," my instincts urged, overriding the unease in my gut. She called out, her voice cutting through the rain. "Hey, beautiful, can you help me get home? Nobody's stopping." Her tone was plaintive, almost childlike, and I crossed the lot, my sneakers splashing in puddles. "I need $60 for a cab to the city," she said, eyes wide. "I've got 40, but it's not enough." Her story tugged at me, her vulnerability mirroring the calls I fielded nightly. I didn't carry cash, but the station had an ATM. "Come inside," I offered. "I'll grab some money." The ATM was dead. Its screen blank, and I apologized, my voice tight with frustration. She followed me back to my car, chatting idly about the weather, her words a strange comfort. I opened my driver's door, ready to leave, when she slipped into the passenger seat, buckling herself in with a click that echoed in my skull. "Get out," my mind screamed, but shock glued me to my seat, staring at her. Her demeanor shifted, the pitiful act gone, replaced by a frenetic energy, her eyes glinting with something wild. "Just drive me to my aunt's house," she said, her voice sharp. "She'll pay." Alarm bells rang loud and insistent, but I swallowed my fear, sensing danger and confrontation. "Stay calm," I told myself, my hands trembling on the wheel. She seemed high, her movements jerky, her words spilling too fast. I didn't know if she had a weapon, but her unpredictability was threat enough. "Where's your aunt's house?" I asked, stalling, no intention of driving. "Just go," she snapped. "I'll tell you where to turn." I shook my head, my voice firm. "Give me an address or we're not moving." Her agitation grew, her fingers twitching, her eyes darting. "Don't worry, honey," she cooed, her tone mocking. "I'm not gonna rob you. I work at the police department." The lie was blatant, her claim clashing with my own job. "It's my job to ask questions," I said, and she exploded, screaming about snitches, her voice a jagged edge. "Get her out," my instincts roared, but I feared her reaction, her closeness suffocating. I took a risk, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I'm not a cop, just a dispatcher. Let's try the Walmart ATM." She calmed instantly, her mood swinging like a pendulum, and I drove, the rain blurring the world outside. The decision felt reckless, but staying in that lot was worse. Her chatter filled the car, erratic and disjointed, her story unraveling. "We're friends now," she said, grinning. "People are after me, 5 or 6 of them. I'll come to your work tomorrow, we'll arrest him." I nodded, humoring her. "Tonight you said you're going home." She laughed, her eyes unfocused. "Yeah, the sticks. No, the city. Cab's $40. I got 40. Her contradictions piled up, each lie a weight, and I gripped the wheel, the Walmart sign a beacon in the dark. At the parking lot, she followed me out, her steps too close, her presence a shadow I couldn't shake. "I need the restroom," I said, planning to call the police from a stall, but she trailed me inside, her grip on my arm sudden and tight. "Stay back," my mind begged as she leaned in, her breath hot against my ear. "No money's fine, sweetie. Do you like being eaten out?" Her words were a slap, her tone dripping with menace. I yanked free, locking myself in a stall, my heart pounding. "I've got police friends who can help," I called, my voice shaking. She screamed, banging the stall door, her rage a storm. "I'm leaving," she shouted, storming out, but I didn't trust her absence. Seconds later, she returned, her fists hammering the door. "Come back to the car," she hissed. "I left my beer there." She had nothing, I knew, her lie a lure, a trap I couldn't fathom. "No," I said, my voice firm, and she left again, the silence heavy with threat. I waited 5 minutes, my breath shallow, before creeping out. A manager called the police, and I recounted the night, my face burning with shame. The officer was kind, his warning stark. Some panhandlers turned violent. One matching her description attacked a helper recently. I nodded, the truth sinking in. I'd been lucky, my naivety nearly fatal. I drive past that station now, its neon sign a ghost of that night. I see her in my dreams, her eyes glinting, her grip on my arm, her voice a whisper in the rain. She was so close, the memory anchors a scar I carry, a lesson etched in fear. I don't stop for strangers anymore, my compassion tempered by caution. She's out there, I know, waiting for another fool, her shadow a warning I'll never forget. The house wasn't there yesterday. It stood at the end of our street, a hulking shadow under the dawn, its windows like eyes that saw too much. We whispered it was haunted, a ghost born in the night. But the real monster wasn't the house. It was him, Rudy, waiting in its dark. I was 13 in the summer of 1978, living in a new neighborhood on the edge of nowhere, a sprawl of half-built homes and empty lots. Our street was a frontier, raw and open, where kids like me ruled the days with bikes and dares. The world felt big, wild, ours to conquer. But that morning, everything changed. I woke to whispers, my friends crowding our porch, their voices low and urgent. "There's a house," Tommy said, his eyes wide. It just appeared. Sensory overload. The morning dew's chill, the buzz of cicadas, the scent of fresh asphalt. I grabbed my bike, heart racing, and pedaled to the end of the street. There it was, squatting on a barren lot, a double-wide trailer with peeling paint and crooked shutters. It looked old, like something from a horror flick, its roof sagging under an unseen weight. Embedded command. Look closer. Feel it. No tire tracks, no signs of a truck. Nothing to explain how it got there. The neighbors, Mr. Jensen, Mrs. Carter, stood in their yards murmuring as confused as we were. "Nobody heard a thing," Mr. Jensen said, scratching his head. The house was a mystery, a riddle we couldn't solve, and it pulled us in like moths to a flame. We called it the Ghost House, a name that stuck as the days passed. Kids spun tales. It was cursed, a portal, a trap for souls. Nested storytelling. My cousin once told me about a barn that appeared in his town, where a boy vanished after sneaking inside. I laughed off the stories, but the house unnerved me. Its windows were dark, reflecting nothing, and at night it seemed to hum, a low vibration I felt in my bones. Trance loop. The hum, the windows, the shadows, looping in my dreams. Some kids dared each other to touch it, running back giggling. Or pale, I stayed back watching, my gut whispering to keep my distance. The house wasn't the only shadow in our neighborhood. Rudy was another. He was in his 20s, lanky, with a smile too wide and eyes that lingered too long. He'd grown up here, known by all, but something was off. Parents whispered about his past, a stint in jail for troubling behavior with kids. Sensory overload, his cheap cologne, the jingle of his keys, the way his laugh grated. He lived with his folks, mowing lawns, waving like nothing was wrong. But we kids knew, stay clear of Rudy. Embedded command. Avoid him. Stay safe. Yet the ghost house distracted us, its mystery eclipsing his danger. Weeks passed, the house a fixture in our games and nightmares. One kid swore he saw a face in the window. Another claimed something grabbed him inside. I saw it myself one day biking past, a boy, maybe 10, bolting from the door, screaming, his face white. "It touched me," he sobbed, and we laughed, but his terror stuck with me. Trance loop. His scream, the door, the house's hum, looping, relentless. The house was a magnet drawing us closer even as fear gnawed at us. We didn't notice Rudy watching, his eyes glinting from his porch, waiting. It all broke one afternoon, the sun low, the air thick with August heat. I was biking with Tommy and a few others, weaving through the streets when Mr. Larson, Bill's dad, roared up in his truck. His face was a mask of panic, his voice sharp. "Where's Bill?" he demanded. A younger kid, oblivious, pointed to the ghost house. "He went in with Rudy," he said, shrugging. Pattern interruption. The world froze, dread flooding my veins. Mr. Larson's eyes widened, a raw fear I'd never seen. He sprinted toward the house, his boots pounding, leaving us stunned. We stood, bikes forgotten, hearts hammering, as he vanished inside. The house was silent, its windows blank, but I felt it watching. Sensory overload, the creak of the house's frame, the distant hum, the sweat on my palms. Then chaos erupted, shouts, a crash, and Rudy flew out the door, sprawling on the dirt. Mr. Larson was on him, fists raining down, his rage a force of nature. Bill stumbled out, crying, "Dad, stop!" But Mr. Larson didn't hear, kicking Rudy as he scrambled up, fleeing to his parents' house. Bill and his dad followed, a storm of fear and fury. We didn't move, our breaths shallow, the house looming behind us. Anchoring, that moment, Rudy's fall, Bill's tears. It burned into me. Later, Bill swore nothing happened, Rudy echoing him, but no one believed it. Mr. Larson had the neighborhood's backing, and Rudy didn't press charges. He moved away soon after, but the story didn't end. 3 years later, I heard he'd been arrested for abducting and killing 2 boys in another town. Pattern interruption. The truth hit, a knife in my gut. Bill had been lucky, inches from a fate we couldn't imagine. That night, I lay awake, replaying it all, wondering what would happen to Rudy, to Mr. Larson. Sleep came heavy, dreamless, until morning broke. My friend Tommy called, his voice shaking. "The house, it's gone." I grabbed my bike, pedaling hard, and found the lot empty, just dirt and weeds, as if the house had never been. Neighbors gathered, whispering, as baffled as before. No tracks, no noise, no trace. Trance loop, the empty lot, the hum, the mystery, looping forever. It was like the house had exhaled, taking its secrets with it. I'm older now, the neighborhood a distant memory, but the ghost house lingers. I've asked old friends, searched records, found nothing. Was it real, a trick of memory, or something else tied to Rudy's darkness? A warning we didn't heed? Nested storytelling. My grandpa once spoke of a ghost ship that appeared before disasters, a sign of evil to come. I don't believe in ghosts, but I feel it. The house's hum, its eyes, its weight. Anchoring the lot, Bill's cry, Rudy's grin. They're my cage. I avoid empty lots now, flinch at old trailers, check shadows for faces. Embedded command. Look twice. Trust your gut. The house is gone, but its mystery isn't. It wasn't. Haunted. Not in the way we thought. The real horror was Rudy, hiding in plain sight, and the house, whatever it was, showed us that. I wonder if it's out there, appearing in another town, its windows watching, waiting for another Rudy, another Bill.